on our YouTube channel at the earliest by the end of this session. The details of our YouTube channel will be shared on the chat window. Further, I would like to request you, dear participants, to kindly ensure that whatever device you are connected with for today's webinar, you can access your chat window. Dear participants, chat window is an important mechanism through which we'll be communicating during the webinar. So any questions you will be having, you have to write us on the chat window. I shall be facilitating the same by asking those questions, but at the end of this session. I request, dear participants, that we will be sharing a feedback form link on the chat window for the automated generation of the certificate of participation for today's webinar. Dear participants, kindly ensure that you are connected with us till the end of this session and you own yourself a certificate of participation for this session despite increasing your knowledge. Dear participants, all the information related to our YouTube channel, our WhatsApp group, our feedback link form would be shared on the chat window. Kindly ensure that you all can access the chat window. I would also request dear participants who all have joined us, connected with us, to please write your name and your area so for better networking in future till the time we start the webinar. You all are requested to please write your name, your area of expertise for better networking in near future in the chat window. Also, it would help you ensure that you can access your chat window. A very pleasant evening to all the panelists and participants connected with us. It is a pleasure to connect with you all. I welcome you all for today's session on the topic Digital Humanities. Our expert for today's session is Professor Manohar Lal sir. We will be starting with the session in a while. Dear participants, till then, it is to inform you that the recorded video of this session will be available on our YouTube channel at the earliest by the end of this session. The details of our YouTube channel will be shared on the chat window. Further, I would like to request you to kindly ensure that whatever device you are connected with, you can please ensure that you can access your chat window, as chat window is an important mechanism through which we will be communicating for the during the webinar. So any questions you will be having, you can write us on the chat window. Also, all the related information will be shared on the chat window only. So it is the only mechanism to communicate. Kindly ensure that you can access the chat window. I also request dear participants to please fill up the feedback form link, which will be shared during the webinar on the chat window itself for the automated generation of the certificate of participation for today's webinar. Dear participants, I request you all to kindly stay connected with us till the last of this session, and also ensure that you owe yourself a certificate of participation. Good evening, Professor Manohar Lal sir. Can you hear me? Good evening, Professor Manohar Lal sir. Professor Manohar Lal sir, good evening. Can you hear me?
Good evening, Manohar sir. You are on mute, sir. Can you hear us?
Good evening, sir. Professor Manohar Lal sir, can you hear us? Please unmute yourself.
Ma'am, let us give sir 5 minutes. Sir might be setting his system. Meanwhile,
Okay,
you
ma'am.
can welcome the guest.
Yeah. A very pleasant evening to all the panelists and participants connected with us. It is our pleasure to connect with you all. I welcome you all for today's session on the topic Digital Humanities. Our expert for today's session is Professor Manohar Lal sir. We will be starting with the webinar in a while. Dear participants, good evening, Professor M.N. Huda sir. Dear participants, it is to inform you that the recorded video of this session shall be made available on our YouTube channel at the earliest by the end of this session. The details of our YouTube channel will be shared on the chat window. Further, I would like to request you, dear participants, to kindly ensure that you all can access your chat window. Whatever device you are connected with for today's webinar, kindly ensure that you can access your chat window, as chat window is the only option to and the mechanism to communicate for today's webinar. Dear participants, whatever queries, whatever questions you will be having for today's webinar, you can write us on the chat window. I shall be facilitating the same by asking those questions, but at the end of this session. I request dear participants to kindly ensure that you can access the chat window. Also, dear participants, we will be sharing a feedback form link on the chat window for automated generation of the certificate of participation for today's webinar. So please stay connected with us till the last of this session and own yourself a certificate of participation despite increasing your knowledge. I once again welcome you all, dear panelists and participants, for the webinars. Good evening, Professor Harjinder Singh Bhatia, sir. I welcome you
Good
for
evening. Good
today's webinar.
evening.
Good evening, sir.
Yes. How are you?
Good, sir. Good, sir. How about
Yes.
you?
That's absolutely fine. I follow the instruction that have cup of tea at home in a comfortable, safe environment. I finished just.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes.
So, a very pleasant evening to all the panelists and participants connected with us. It is a pleasure to connect with you all. I welcome you all for today's webinar on the topic Digital Humanities. Our expert for today's session is Professor Manohar Lal, sir. Sir has already joined us. We will be starting in a while, dear participants. Dear participants, it is for your information that the recorded video of this session shall be made available on our YouTube channel at the earliest by the end of this session. The details of our YouTube channel will be shared on the chat window during the webinar. Further, I would like to request you to kindly ensure that whatever device you are connected with for today's webinar, kindly ensure that you can access your chat window. Dear participants, chat window is an important mechanism through which we all will be communicating during the webinar. So any questions you will be having, you can write us on the chat window. I shall be facilitating the same by asking those questions, but at the end of this session. Also, dear participants, we all will be sharing a feedback form link on the chat window for the automated generation of certificate of participation for today's session. Dear participants, kindly ensure that you are connected with us till the last of this session and own yourself a certificate of participation. Till then, dear participants, I request you all to please kindly write your name and your areas for better networking for the near future in the chat window, and that would also help you ensure that you have found the chat window and you can access it.
Ma'am, I have a talk with Manohar sir. He's joining us in 5 minutes.
Okay, ma'am. Okay. Thank you. A very pleasant evening to all the panelists and the participants connected with us. It is our pleasure to connect with you all. I welcome you all for today's session on the topic Digital Humanities. Our expert for today's session is Professor Manohar Lal sir. He has already joined us. We'll be starting soon at 6 p.m., dear participants. This is for your information, dear participants, that the recorded video of our session will be made available on our YouTube channel at the earliest by the end of this session. Also, our YouTube channel holds numerous of our previous videos of the previous webinars and our activities. So kindly subscribe our YouTube channel for the same. Also, dear participants, the details of our YouTube channel will be shared on the chat window during the webinar. You can find the same on the chat window and subscribe our YouTube channel. Dear participants, further, I would like to request you to kindly ensure that whatever device you are connected with for today's webinar, please ensure that you can access the chat window. Chat window is the only mechanism through which we will be communicating during the webinar. So any questions you will be having, you can write us on the chat window. I shall be facilitating the same by asking those questions, but at the end of the session. Dear participants, also it is to inform you that we will be sharing a feedback form link on the chat window for automated generation of certificate of participation for today's session. The link will be shared at the around or during the webinar or at the end of this session. You can find it from the chat window and fill in the same as soon as we share the link. Dear participants, you are requested to to stay connected with us till the last of this session for the smooth generation of certificate of participation. I request all the participants who have already joined us to kindly write in the chat window your name and your area for better networking, and also it will help you ensure that you have found the chat window and you can access it. A very pleasant evening to all the panelists and participants connected with us. It is our pleasure to connect with you all. I welcome you all for today's session on the topic Digital Humanities. Our expert for today's session is Professor Manohar Lal, sir. Sir has already joined us. We will be starting shortly. This is for your information, dear participants, that the recorded video of this session shall be made available on our YouTube channel at the earliest by the end of this session. The details of our YouTube channel will be shared on the chat window. Also, dear participants, I would like to request you to kindly ensure that you can access your chat window as it is the important mechanism for us for today's webinar. Good evening, Subramaniam sir. I welcome you for today's webinar. Good evening, Professor Manohar Lal, sir. Can you hear me?
There is a problem.
Good
Uh,
evening, sir.
oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Dear participants, I would like to request you to kindly ensure that you all can access your chat window as it is the only mechanism for us to communicate with you all. I shall be facilitating the same by asking those questions, but at the end of this session. Dear participants, our guest for today, our expert speaker for today's webinar has already joined us. We'll be starting shortly. Professor Manohar Lal sir, I would like to request you to please test your presentation for today's webinar. We have shared the presenter rights with you.
Doctor, should I start my sharing?
Sir, sir, first test your first slide for of the PPT.
Uh,
We'll be starting soon.
uh,
I would request you to please check whether you can share your presentation.
okay. At present, I should not share it. And am I not? I am not clear. Hello.
Yes, sir. You might be getting an option down of share.
Yeah. Should I?
Please click on the same.
Should I start?
Sir, just click on that option. We will test whether your PPT can be presented from your end or not.
Now it is not happening. What is it? It is not happening.
Okay, I'll help you with it, sir. I'll help you. Sir, are you getting an option of share at the bottom of the window?
No,
Share.
at present, it is not active.
Acha,
It is not active. Ah.
okay, sir. Okay. Okay,
Good evening.
we'll be
Manoj Lal sir,
starting.
good evening.
Good evening, Dr.
Yeah. If if you want, we can share the presentation from our end.
Will there be any problem?
No
That's a question.
problem. Then you will only have to say next, next, next. If you are comfortable sharing, well and good.
Okay.
Otherwise, if you are finding it difficult, we may share it from.
It is not happening on my end. It is not happening. I should.
Should I join?
No, sir. Just a minute. Manish, sir, please give the presenter rights to the second system of Manoj, sir.
Yes.
Sir, just a minute. We will be sharing the presenter.
Oh, yeah. It is working now. It is working.
Yes, sir.
Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you. It is working.
Okay, sir, we'll be starting in a while, sir.
Okay.
We'll be starting in a while.
Sir, now it is visible.
Visible.
Yes.
So, should I start?
So we will be starting in another 5 minutes.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, sir. A very pleasant evening to all the panelists and participants connected with us. It is our pleasure to connect with you all. I welcome you all for today's webinar on the topic Digital Humanities. Our expert for today's session is Professor Manohar Lal sir. He has already joined us. We'll be starting shortly, dear participants. Good evening, Subrata sir. Good evening. I welcome you for today's webinar. Good evening,
Good
Subrata
evening.
sir.
Now it has come. Okay, it was kept.
How are you, sir?
Fine. I hope all of you are well after 3 days of active activities for the
Yes,
IndiaCom
sir. We have.
conference.
Yes, sir. We had a great, successful event, and we are all happy with the great success of the same. Dear participants, all our distinguished panelists have already joined us, and we are glad that you all are connected with us for today's webinar. I request you once again to please ensure that whatever device you are connected with us for today's webinar, you can access your chat window, as it is the only mechanism for communicating during the webinar. We will be starting with today's session in another 3 to 4 minutes. I request you all to please write your name and your area of expertise so that you can ensure that you can access your chat window, dear participants. I would also like to inform you, dear participants, that we will be sharing a feedback form link on the chat window at the end of this webinar or during the webinar for the smooth and automated generation of certificate of participation for today's session. Dear participants, kindly stay connected with us till the last of this session and own yourself a certificate of participation for today's webinar. Dear participants, I once again request you to please ensure that you can access the chat window. You can write us your name and your area of expertise for smooth access of your chat window, and you will be able to know where is the chat window and can you access it for today's webinar. A very pleasant evening to all the panelists and participants connected with us. It is our pleasure to connect with you all for today's webinar. I welcome you all for today's session on the topic Digital Humanities. Our expert for today's session is Digital Humanities, and our expert for today's session is Professor Manohar Lal sir. He has already joined us. We'll be starting in another 1 or 2 minutes, dear participants. Kindly stay connected with us. Dear participants, I would like to request you to please ensure that whatever device you are connected, you can access your chat window, dear participants. It is the only mechanism for communicating for today's webinar. So please ensure that you have smooth access to your chat window. Good evening, Professor M.N. Huda, sir. I welcome you for today's webinar.
Good evening. Good evening, Ayushi. Please start.
Okay, sir. Okay. A very pleasant evening to all the distinguished panelists and participants. Bharati Vidyapeeth's Institute of Computer Applications and Management, BVI CAM, in association with Computational Intelligence Society, chapter of IEEE Delhi section, Computer Society, chapter of IEEE Delhi section, Technology and Engineering Management Society, chapter of IEEE Delhi section, System, Man and Cybernetics Society, chapter of IEEE Delhi section, Communication Society of IEEE Delhi section, Life Member Affinity Group of IEEE Delhi section, Inter-Society Relations Standing Committee of IEEE Delhi section, Industry Relations and Special Interest Group on Humanitarian Technology Standing Committees of IEEE Delhi section with the associations Computer Society of India, Institute of Information Technology Professionals, ISTE Delhi section, and IETE Delhi Center as technical collaborator welcomes you all to the webinar on the topic Digital Humanities. It is a moment of pride and honor to announce that we, with united hands, mark special contribution for the monumental occasion Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, an initiative to celebrate 75 years of glorious independence by organizing the thought-provoking sessions for our better future. This webinar is an initiative for celebration of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. Humanities, technology, and science are not disciplines in conflict. They are actually interdependent modes of inquiry that produce the thing we call culture. Today, we live in a pure digital age and are hyper-connected with the digital devices all around us. Contemporary research in humanities has expanded beyond anything that could be considered
There is a voice.
historians
There is voice problem.
digital maps, literary scholars using computers look at the of the humanities and the social sciences. This webinar aims to discuss the all-around perspective, including the real-time issues and the humanities projects. I would first take the opportunity to our distinguished panelists for the Professor Subrata Mukhopadhyay, sir, Chairperson, Consultants Network Group, and Delhi section. I now request Professor Subrata Mukhopadhyay, sir, to commence this session with his welcome address. Please, sir.
Thank you, Ayushi, Professor Manohar Lal, and other distinguished
Yes, sir.
panelists, as well as the participants who have all assembled to listen to Professor Manohar Lal again on another topic, very important, digital humanities. The issue is already explained by IOC, science, engineering, humanities. These are not disciplines, but interdisciplines or integrated disciplines that will make the total system definitely an acceptable thing, because offline, online, real time, everything we are listening.
रिबाउंड हो रही है बेटा आवाज
All we are listening for quite some time, and during pandemic we have seen how we have progressed, not only in geometric progression, maybe much higher level, and depending on the digitalization of the system. But once we have gone back,
नाउ इट्स ओके पर थोड़ी देर पहले म्यूट कर रही थी
I think there is some other place, because I am side by side recording also and seeing the communication link. It is fully, and my CPU is being utilized almost 87%. It cannot be, it is not heard by somebody, it is the fault at that end.
बेटा वो दोनों वीडियो वगैरह करो
Professor
हो सकता है,
Manohar
if you
sir, your
put on
mic is
videos
on.
and all these things, that may be in that side, not my side. I just keep that monitor on when I speak normally. So anyway, basically we'll like to hear from that one, because when we have gone back recently again from February to the offline mode or physical mode, definitely we are feeling quite comfortable, and we got something that we were missing. Now let me hear, actually, when I have got this idea or the topic digital, so I'm very sure in his what is that algorithm, whatever has been shown, publishing and all other types of things. I'm sure Professor Manohar Lal will throw some light on how to make it as a humanitarian touch to this digitalization era, or whatever we are trying to do. With these words, I'm finishing over here. I don't want to take more time. Professor Huda will tell, and then Professor Manohar Lal will be hearing actually on this topic. Over to Ayush.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I now request Professor M.N. Huda, Director, Bharatiya Vidyapeeth Institute of Computer Applications and Management, and Vice Chairperson, IEEE Delhi Section, to address the participants with his inspiring words. Please, sir.
Am I audible, Ayushi?
Yes, sir, you are.
Yeah, good evening, one and all. At the outset, let me welcome my friend, a very senior professor, Professor Manohar Lalji, who is the valued speaker for today's webinar. I also take this opportunity to welcome all my friends from various professional societies, Professor Subrata Mukhopadhyay, Professor Subramaniam Krishnamurthy, Professor H.S. Bhatia, and many of my friends in attendees, and above all the participants from various parts of the country. Dear friends, this is my privilege to welcome you for 68th webinar, which is conducted, all of you know that, on every week, Saturday evening, as IEEE BVI Camp webinar series. For today, the topic which has been selected, digital humanities, is one of the most evolving topics. That is why I normally claim that digital humanities is nothing but humanities 2.0. How can we use digital technologies in humanities and make the job of humanities people easy? All of you may be aware that what are those subjects which are part of humanities. So in all those subjects, how can the digital resources in systematic way be used so that its accessing, its utilization, its analysis, its retrieval, and taking decision depending upon that becomes easy. One of the simplest example, there are many digital humanities based projects. One of the simplest example of that is say maybe around 50 till 15 years ago, even a decade ago, we were having maps, but if we wanted to retrieve any information out of the map was in hard copy. Maps were also available in soft copy, but were not in interactive mode. So if we wanted to find a route from X place to Y place, possibly it was a very difficult task. But this Google Map, which has been made interactive, and digital technologies in terms of multiple algorithms working in a most real-time manner. The moment has been integrated with that map, so now retrieving information has become easy. Like this, there are a number of examples. If you wanted to visit a city, so you wanted to visit some famous places of the city, so you wanted to know details. So one way is displaying static information. Second way is that the archive which has been maintained will interact with you depending upon your requirement. And finally, you can filter out that how and in which way, to which all places and when you wanted to visit and which you do not want.
So there is some technical disruption from your end.
To me in a big way that he always a new lecture requested in, sir, can you take up this topic? And he said, oh yes, why not? This will study it. Thank you so much to participants from all parts of the country. We are here to listen.
So we cannot hear properly.
Ayushi, over to you.
Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. I would now welcome amongst us our expert speaker for today's webinar, Professor Manohar Lal, sir, with an e-bouquet. I request Mani, sir, to present an e-bouquet to Professor Manohar Lal, sir. Please, sir. I welcome you, Professor Manohar Lal, sir.
Thank you, Dr.
Professor Manohar
Thank
Lal,
you.
sir, has teaching
Thank
and
you.
research experience of more than 54 years,
Slides
having
down.
taught at various universities, including University of Delhi, JNU, and South Asian University. He has served as the director, School of Computer and Information Sciences, Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi. He has also been the professor and head of Computer Science Department and director, Computer Center at MD University, Rohtak, and at HP University, Shimla, a product of IIT Kanpur, IIT Delhi, and University of Delhi. He completed his MTech in Computer Science and Engineering from IIT Kanpur and pursued his second PhD in Computer Science and Engineering from IIT Delhi. Earlier, he completed his master's and PhD programs in mathematics from University of Delhi. During 1982 to 83, he visited North Carolina State University for postdoctoral work. He has delivered more than 600 hours of lecture through educational channels, including EduSet and Gyan Darshan of TV and Gyan Vani of radio. Professor Lal Sir has long research experience. Earlier, he worked in the area of error correcting codes, a branch of data communication. Currently, he is working in the areas of theoretical computer science, formal methods in software engineering, and automation of reasoning. He is a member of a number of national and international academic and professional bodies. He is a reviewer of a number of national and international journal of mathematics, artificial intelligence, and e-learning. We are honored to have you amongst us. I welcome you to this session. I would now request you, sir, to please enlighten the house. Please, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Chopra.
Thank you, sir.
I'm really thankful to you, Professor Hodda, Professor Mukhopadhyay, other panelists for remembering me for this occasion. It gives me an opportunity of interacting with hundreds and hundreds of scholars across India and possibly outside also. So with this introduction, I'm really thankful to the participants also who have spared their very valuable time also. Dr. Ayush Chopra, my voice is resounding. Is it a technical problem on that side or it is okay?
So you are connected from two devices and you might be, you have to check that you are mute from one of the device.
Oh,
That,
okay.
that, yes.
Problem is, I think you have diagnosed the problems. But so my video PPTs are also not visible on my screen. Now your name is there on the screen.
Sir, please check from the device and share your presentation.
Once again.
The
Okay,
sharing,
okay,
yes,
okay.
yes, sir.
Ah, is it visible?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Okay. So these technical problems are there.
No issues, sir, no issues.
Thank you very much once
Yes, sir.
again. I'm really thankful to all of you, particularly the panelists and the listeners, Professor Mukhopadhyay, Professor Hoda, and Dr. Ayush, you also.
Thank you, sir.
So
It was a pleasure.
you have already listened to Professor Mukhopadhyay and Professor Hoda also about the value of humanities also. In this lecture also, I have taken care of the fact that I emphasize the humanities vis-a-vis the sciences also. So half of my lecture is about the significance of humanities in our life, our academic culture. So with this, I go ahead. I repeat this slide in view of the new participants, in view of the heterogeneous audience, undergraduate students, researchers, and faculty. Dr. Chopra, is the resounding voice creating problem to you also?
No, sir, it is totally smooth.
Okay, on my side it is a resounding. Okay, so I restart. In view of the heterogeneous audience, undergraduate students, researchers, and faculty, and possibly from different academic disciplines, attempt is made to discuss issues from the fundamentals to the state of art research in the field. Also, an online virtual lecture, of course, has the advantage of being accessible to large audience across the world, but still eye-to-eye contact has the advantage of being accessible to large audience across the world, but still eye-to-eye contact available in the face-to-face mode is yet to be achieved. Therefore, I have written down whole of my presentation requiring only some explanation. This slide I repeat every time, but in view of the new participants. This slide is a bit new one. A wanderer-gatherer or a vagabond approach. Topic in our case, digital humanities, does not exist in a view. It has an environment in which it nurtures. The environment consists of people, places, periods, intellectuals, political and social orders and movements. Everyday pains and pleasures of intellectuals, like any other person, where even these pains and pleasures affect their intellectual contributions. Here we can afford to have some glimpses into the environment and personal lives of some of the people involved. It may not be possible during the regular university lectures due to various pressures, including that of completing the syllabus. So we may be discussing some of these issues indirectly also. And why vagabondism? The purpose of such talks is not only to answer some questions like what is digital humanities, how it is conducted, what are its characteristics, but also to open up gates for points to ponder and for possibilities for alternative, unconventional, and even unruly ways of discussing the topic. Here, not being under pressure of finishing the prescribed syllabus, we can afford to do so. Friends, cherry picking. Friends, the intellectual enterprise of humanities covers almost everything which we as human beings have been experiencing, imagining, and expressing, not only in and out of the past and present, but also about the future. Even the science and technologies, which are considered distinct from humanities, are humanistic in the sense that these also involve our emotions, feelings, and clashes, as those witnessed between Newton and Leibniz over calculus. And in the matter of grants and funds given and received, these clashes and grants to science projects are, it has to be highly selective and even subjective, picking only according to the capacity and fancy. So the topics are picked up for this presentation according to my whims about my capacity and capabilities also. Friends, the whole talk is divided into three parts. The first part, introduction and conceptual framework. In this, I discuss the concepts involved in the title. One is the digital, the other is the humanities, and the third is digital humanities. Second part is digital humanities, working definitions, concept, and term. Alternate histories, distinction between DH and conventional humanities, new humanities of digital age. In the last part, we discuss research challenges and potentials in the digital age. And finally, concluding remarks. Before I go ahead with the normal part of the talk, I again remember Professor Mukhopadhyay's words that humanities are very important in our life. And by chance, I have taken into consideration this fact, and almost one third or even half of the lecture is devoted to the significance of digital, of the humanities in our everyday life. Friends, first of all, we discuss the concept of digital. These tools available for academic and research purposes may be classified as digital, computational, and informatics based with subtle differences. Some example of their uses as prefix or adjective are digital humanities, on which we are talking today, digital enterprise, digital economy, and digital sociology, some for example. Similarly, computational humanities, computational economics, and computational sociology. Informatics-based security informatics, social informatics, and medical informatics. So friends, the tools which are available to us for teaching and research are technically divided into three parts. I'll tell about the subtle differences between these three, but later on we call all of these together as digital. Friends, in this, I'll explain through the examples of the money and sociology how digital money is different from your computational money and from informatics, and similarly sociology. Friends, example of money to differentiate between these three terms. The money available through an electronic wallet like Bhim is digital money because it cannot be touched or transferred physically. The processes they go inside the computer and the internet, which allow the transferring of the money from one account to another, are called computational. And lastly, the large number of accounts that keep record of electronic and digital money available to different persons and organizations are stored in large databases. A discipline which allows us to create such large bases is called the informatics. Friends, the example of discipline, sociology, how these three terms differentiate in the case of an academic discipline. Digital sociology is a sub-discipline of the academic field of sociology. It focuses on understanding the use of digital media. That part of sociology which is concerned about the use of digital media is called digital sociology. On the other hand, computational sociology is a branch of sociology that uses computationally intensive methods to analyze and model the social phenomena. And friends, finally, social informatics is the study of information and communication tools in cultural and institutional contexts. Friends, as I mentioned earlier also, however, for all practical purposes in the rest of the discussion, the term digital will stand for any of these or all of these combined together. In order to give better grasp, friends, we'll be discussing this humanities topic little bit in more detail. In order to better grasp what is humanities in conventional sense, we go for a while into the history of disciplinarities. How disciplinarity distinction arose first at stream or faculty level, like science stream, social science stream, humanities and performing arts, and then down to the academic disciplines. Little history of disciplinarity, its birth and kinds. Friends, ancient intellectual traditions, philosophers and other scholars and writers, mainly from priestly class, pursued almost all branches of knowledge using possibly different approaches. The knowledge so accumulated was earlier memorized and later, when the writing mechanism started, was available in the form of the manuscripts. Of course, disciplinary distinctions between humanities and sciences were recognized even in the olden times or Middle Ages, in the sense that the former, that is, the humanities, were considered to belong to trivium, grammar, rhetoric, and logic, and later to quadrivium, that is, arithmetic, geometric, music, and astronomy. But on the whole, every scholar who pursued one branch possibly pursued all the branches also. However, the introduction of printing press around 1450 in Europe, knowledge became available to the lay persons. Till the 17th century, natural sciences were called natural philosophy. The term exact science or natural science came in vogue quite late, probably by beginning of the 19th century. Philosophy is an approach. Why I'm talking of philosophy? Because natural sciences were called natural philosophy. Philosophy is an approach to solving problems through rational means. When philosophy or rationality is combined with proper data, whether through experimental means or otherwise, it is now called science. However, essential difference between sciences and humanities, not the nomenclature, began with Galileo's work, including his scientific method of conducting scientific investigation and expressing the work in mathematical forms of equations, laying down the foundation of modern science. From that point onwards, the distinctions started. Though differences in approaches start with Galileo around 1680, yet actual differentiation sharpened with the Red lecture on May 7, 1959 by C.P. Sano, a British scientist and novelist, which was later published as the book entitled The Two Cultures. Friends, why these distinctions matter? The main effect of the differentiation between sciences and the humanities is mainly in respect of research grants. Sciences generally get more grant where the humanities get less. Also, in the case of allotment of faculty position, generally the humanities are at disadvantage. However, we should take care the significance of humanities. Friends, humanities express our human sense of personal individuality, our subjectivity, including our weaknesses of being erratic, unsure, fuzzy, unsafe, devious, stubborn, restless, and desirous, absurd, and passionate. These are parts of the reality of human nature. is the literature, including stories, novels, and poems, which express these weaknesses, the more intricately and subtly, not necessarily precisely, the higher it is evaluated in qualities in humanities. Imagination of the author in capturing these weaknesses, including individual eccentricities, plays a very important role in the quality of humanities work. But on the other hand, in sciences, whether natural, biological, formal, or social, the concerns are generality, opposite to individuals' feelings, objectivity, opposite of subjectivity, exactness, opposite of fuzzy, and precision. Is scientific work which has fuzziness, imprecision, subjectivity, etc. is considered of inferior quality. Individual eccentricities have little value in sciences, but it is true that human beings are eccentric. Search of this type of truth is also a part of our search for truth. The truth scientists seek through theories, etc., is not the only truth. Individual who is at the foundations of humanity is almost completely ignored by sciences because of their own concerns. Sciences follow the approach of theories or theoretical abstractions, logical deduction, making hypotheses, and collecting and analyzing data. Humanities use direct modes of analysis, including imagination, sometimes quite wild. Both the approaches, humanistic as well as scientific, are for the search of truth of nature. The first at micro level, the later at macro level. It is the human weakness that we cannot work on both the levels simultaneously, and therefore one has to choose either to be a humanistic or scientist. Main reason for scientific approach being considered superior is that its arguments and results are immediately tangible and convincible. The values of humanities become apparent in long run and in indirect way. Next, we briefly discuss some limitations of scientific approach and strengths of humanities. Friends, one of the major pillars of scientific approach is rationality. Like the rules of modest ponent, which states if both one, that is P, is true and P implies Q are true, then Q must be true. It is modus ponens, which is one of the rules of inference in scientific approaches. However, during 1930s, this is very important for us to note. However, during 1930s, some of the pioneers of computer science, including Gödel, Turing, Church, Post, proved, please note the word proved is in capital. That is, if something is proved, then it can't be false, provided its hypotheses are true. So during 1930s, these great computer scientists proved the following results about the limitations of computer, which number one is the ultimate instrument of rational problem solving. Computers are the ultimate instrument of rational problem solving, and they are the ultimate product of scientific achievement. But despite being ultimate instruments of rational problem solving, they have a number of limitations which were proved by these great luminaries in 1930s. Friends, one of the results which was proved by these greats was only a very small, infinitesimally small fraction of the problems which we human beings encounter will be ever solvable by even the fastest computer to be designed ever. Only very, very small fraction will be solved of the problems which we'll encounter. And they also proved out of the very small possible solvable problems, only very small fraction will be solvable in time to be useful. Most of the problems will take too much time to be useful. Friends, this shows that the rational approach, whose ultimate example is computer, has also limitations. I give a very simple example of the limitation of the rational approach. Here it is given. Professor Manohar Lal says, I'm telling lies. Nobody can tell whether Professor Manohar Lal is telling lies or not. Because if it is true, then it is false. And if it is false, then it is true. That is, if he is speaking truth, then he is speaking lies. And if he is speaking lies, then he is true. So what I mean to say through this example is that even simple problems cannot be solved by rational means. And therefore, we need the humanities, where irrationality is one of the major, imagination is one of the major bases. Hence, these are the provable limitations of rational scientific approach. Apart from these, we have discussed in our previous lectures what serious problems the scientific technological approach is creating, including pollution of air, water with all sorts of poisonous chemicals, it is here. Social problems of increasing income disparities, unemployment, monopoly, fake news, etc. Next, we briefly discuss contribution of imagination in science fiction, which have contributed to the development of science. Friends, these are some of the examples where the science fiction has led the scientific developments. The idea of geocentric satellite became popular through Arthur Clarke's letter in 1945. It was first publicly articulated vision of technology that would change the world. Similarly, transparent aluminum. The idea came from the science fiction Star Trek universe. Artificial vision or prosthetic eyes also came through the science fiction of the Ghost in the Shell series. Cell phones, the idea of cell phones came to the science fiction franchise Star Trek. So, friends, science fiction, which is based on imagination, has led to scientific discoveries also. Imagination is not always useless. Friends, pure imagination not always a sign of mental vagrancy, mental hollowness or deviancy or intellectual bankruptcy. Many a time imagination explores the alternate worlds and universes in which something or phenomena is possible, which is not possible in our universe. Nowadays, the theory of alternate worlds or universes is accepted by the scientists also. Scientists now not only believe in, but are exploring possibilities of alternate universes, having different physics, chemistries, and biologies, easy in some of which opposites don't attract each other but repel. So, friends, exploration of the alternate worlds or universe is provided by our imagination, which is dominant factor in humanities. This mental capability of imagination for searching for alternate worlds has led to creation of masterpieces. I'll give you some examples of the masterpieces which have been created through the idea of alternate universes. Friends, you look at this picture, one of very highly respected. It is counterintuitive in the sense that you see that the water is falling, and continuously falling. So, friends, it is counterintuitive. And this was produced by Asher, one of most respected uh, graphic artists. Similarly, this man also did this one. It is also counterintuitive. You can see these are the staircases which has one upside and one downside. And the persons on both sides are walking, which is quite unintuitive. And here you see a person is sitting comfortably downwards. So these are some of the graphic artists which are really respected highly by Asher, who is a respected graphic artist. Friends, in case of these rare artistic works, Asher was prompted by Einstein's theory of relativity, science inspiring art. That is what I want to convey through it is, or through the previous 3 or 4 slides is, that science and humanities are interacting to strengthen each other. Next, we show how mathematics has impacted arts in creative ways. In mathematics, any n-dimensional space is possible where n may be 3,000 or 3 million. Now, please look at it. This is done by Dali. It is 4-dimensional. Please look at it. This is 3-dimensional. And this lady is watching from outside. So it is 4-dimensional space. So the idea to Dali came from mathematics, where you can have n-dimensional spaces where n may be 4, 5, 100, or 1,000. So what I want to convey through this is there is interaction between humanities and sciences and mathematics, enriching each other. And just to emphasize the significance of humanities, here are 4 lines by the English poet William Blake. To see a world in a grain of sand and a heaven in the wild flower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. No practical wisdom or rational thinking can lead to writing these lines. Before we go to the episode, sorry, this I did. Okay, so what I want to say, imagination shows us a different world and a pleasant world. And how I come to disciplinarity helps. That is, having physics different from chemistry, having physics different from English literature, etc., definitely helps because of our limited capability, intellectual capabilities. However, disciplinarity helps, but many times it limits our vision also. Number of new classifications like interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary, etc., have emerged because of the limitations of disciplinarity. But the hard disciplinary boundaries remain from the point of view of appointments and grants. Friends, in respect of disciplinarities, these two, the following references are quite useful for those who would like to read more about this one. The first is the two cultures, shared problems, edited by this one. And in this, particularly, you read the chapter, Symmetry, a Bridge Between Two Cultures by Marcus Stott. Stott is a professor of popularization of science in Britain. The second is Invitation of Disciplines by Stephen Tolman. He is a great author and philosopher in the book Knowledge, Critical Concepts. Friends, before I brief sum up, we compare the capabilities which the two streams of sciences and humanities develop. First is intellectual versus visceral. Scientific culture involves more of logical and cumulative reasoning, whereas humanities culture involves more visceral, that is our emotions, feelings, and attitude, human traits. Collective versus individual. Science generally studies properties of the collectives. Easy physical sciences study properties of like matter, energy, etc., not just the properties of some specific body. On the other hand, humanities, individual emotions, pain, pleasure, etc., are studied. Reasoning style. In sciences, formal reasoning and precise calculations are very important. In humanities, mostly informal reasoning and even imagination, pure imagination is also involved. So this is a comparative study of the two approaches for developing human intellect. Friends, values. Critical thinking is essential for value for both sciences and humanities. Values attributed to the humanities include human plight, social cohesion, and cultural heritage. According to the Humanities 2015 World Report, UNESCO maintains list of tangible and intangible human cultural heritage, which are used to preserve highlight of the human experience. In wider sense, humanities safeguard, please note this, in a wider sense, the humanities safeguard human existence by recording and unlocking traces of the human mind through time. Sciences provide information about common human characteristics which are durable over time and space. Humanity's intrinsic value is that they provide human diversity over time and space, without which we cannot understand ourselves. Friends, I am so much concerned with the neglect of humanities. I repeatedly emphasize the value of humanities by another quotation at the cost of appearing to be boring. The quotation is from the Digital Humanities Primer by this one. The humanities may be regarded as a body of knowledge and insight, as modes of expression, as a program for education, as an underlying attitude towards life. The body of knowledge is usually taken to include the study of history, literature, arts, religion, and philosophy. The fine and performing arts are modes of expressing thoughts and feelings, visually, verbally, and orally. The attitude towards life centers on the concern for the human individual, for his emotional development, for his moral, religious, and aesthetic ideas, and for his goals, including particularly his growth as a rational being and as a responsible member of the community. Humanities are very important. Friends, however, even if intrinsically different, both cultures, scientific and humanist, are concerned with the big problems of survival in wholly hostile environment and or arising out of intellectual hunger of knowing more and more of the nature just out of curiosity that have troubled humankind since it started to think. Main difference is in the approaches to tackle them from angles that are sometimes so different that they make dialogue between the two streams all but impossible. Friends, I summarize this section. According to Wikipedia, humanities include anthropology, archaeology, classics, history, language, law, politics, literature, philosophy, religion, performing arts, and visual arts. These will form the basis for digital humanities. Now, in the second part, friends, about the digital humanities, we'll start with working definition. Then we'll discuss what was the concept, since when the concept was in use and when the term came, and alternate histories. Then we'll have the distinction between digital humanities and convent. And finally, we'll discuss new humanities. Because of the digital age, a number of new humanities disciplines have arisen. We'll briefly discuss each of these ones. Friends, this is the discipline of digital humanities is a relatively new and is evolving, and hence to give a definition is quite difficult. However, just to initiate the topic, we may start with the following working definition from Wikipedia. Digital humanities is an area of scholarly activity at the intersection of computing or digital technologies on one hand and the disciplines of humanities on the other hand. It includes systematic use of digital resources in humanities, as well as the analysis of their applications. Digital humanity may be defined as new ways of doing scholarship that involve collaborative. This is maybe another way of looking at digital humanities. That is, it is scholarship that involves collaborative, transdisciplinarity, and computationally engaged research and teaching and research. I'll discuss this last two lines in more details. Digital humanities. Friends, when the term digital humanities came in use, we look at the history. One of the first mentions of humanities computing. Earlier versions of, though distinct from digital humanities, to name the activities of computing in and for humanities was in 1966. That is, in the literature, the term was used possibly or probably in 1966 by Heller and Longman in an article in the second issue of Cha. In 1968, Aldo Duro published a survey of humanities computing activities in Italy, which suggests that the term was already well known. So the term of digital humanities, rather humanities computing, which is the earlier version, came around in 1966 or so. The concept, this is something different, friends. The idea that the computers can be used for the purpose of humanities. This idea, I hope you may be knowing Lady Lovelace, who is said to be the first programmer of the world and a friend of Babbage, who developed the first model, though of unsuccessful computer, modern computer. And she contributed a lot from the other side, apart from the hardware. So, Lady Lovelace, the concept or idea of using computers for arts is found for the first time in the French book of 1843 by Menata, in which it is mentioned that Lady Lovelace stated the following regarding possible applications of Babbage's analytical engine. She said, analytical engine might act upon other things besides numbers. Supposing, for instance, that the fundamental relations of pitch, sound in the science of harmony and of musical composition were susceptible of such expression and adaptation, the engine might compose elaborate and scientific pieces of music of any degree of complexity. And Lovelace was proved right when the first digital music was produced around 1950 or 51. Alternate histories. Friends, there are always, contradicting histories. Even now, in India, nowadays, there is a debate about whether the Aryans came here or were the original residents. Similarly, in the sciences also, there are clashes. So here also, there are two particularly theories about the histories of digital humanities. Digital humanities discipline is said to have descended from the field of humanities computing with the pioneering work of Jesus scholar Robert Bussa and Professor Joseph Mayer, who used it for the purpose of, in the 13th century, for the purpose of word searching, sorting, counting. Their purpose was text search. This is one of the theories of the earliest use of digital humanities. The second is another one. However, according to Sula and Hill, text analysis is not the only part of digital humanities on the basis of which earlier credit to Busa and others has been allotted. According to them, the earliest work in this direction was initiated for machine translation around 1946 by Warren Weaver, Richard H. Richins, and Andrew D. Booth. So these are the two possible ways of looking at the beginning of the history or use of computers for the purpose of humanities. Friends, differences I come between the humanities and digital humanities. If we want to summarize the difference in one sentence, it is solo music versus orchestra, where the latter involves a large ensemble of instruments. A work in conventional humanities, whether it is a research paper, a literary work, say, or a book, or a painting, it involves generally a single author or a small team, but all from the same field. On the other hand, a digital humanity work, not always but many a time, is a software project around humanities theme. The only distinguishing feature of this type of software project is that it is about humanities theme or subject. Apart from the discipline expert, it involves software engineering, web designers, programmers, etc., like any other software project. It requires it is of interdisciplinary nature. It requires collaboration between different type of experts, infrastructure, and management of the whole system or project. So that is the major difference. Friends, some of the examples in order to support of my claim in the previous slide, these are some of the projects of the digital humanities. For example, creating immersive and interactive environment for engaging with the ancient Egyptian coffins. So it involves humanities but because interactive, immersive is to be created with the computational resources, so it is a digital humanities project. Images of eternity in 3D, the visualization of ancient Egyptian coffee through photogrammetry, a digital corpus of text for study of magical rituals, human-machine interaction composition using machine learning, automatic authorship attribution in Hebrew Bible and other literary texts, human-machine interactive composition using machine learning. Friends, these are some of the projects of the digital humanities which are either completed or maybe in the process of being completed. Now, friends, digital humanities is not simply digital plus humanities. We have discussed a number of times in the past also that introduction of technology is not mere physical addition, but it is a chemical or drastic change, particularly in the intellectual task with its tools, technologies, fires our minds, providing wings to our imagination to explore many new avenues hitherto impossible. Friends, we have already discussed how the technology have changed the world in a global village in which the availability of knowledge, money, ticket, etc. is at the click of a button. Similarly, medical expertise, weather forecasting, disaster forecasting, etc. Everything at the almost instantly because of the technology and the lifestyle is completely or drastically changed. It is not mere addition. On the other hand, it has affected negatively also to a very large extent, as we have seen in our previous lectures also, how electronic terrorists threaten each other or tweet armies shout down any reasonable voice by making thousands of tweets and unethical marketing. What I mean to say, the scale of either benefits or harmful effects is almost massive, almost unlimited. That is, the computational technology has completely changed the living style of human beings. Friends, why the computational or digital aspect has changed the humanities? What are the reasons at the surface level? For example, it allows to experiment us. If we are drawing a painting or something, and if something is not according to our vision, we need not throw it and start afresh. You can modify there and then itself. Similarly, arts become accessible to laymen. Now, even a common man may try his or her hand on drawing and paintings and all that. Large repertoire of tools are being creates environment for collaborative work. This is very important. Deeper investigation in the sciences of humanities, because a lot of data is available from various streams of humanities, and you can find out the essence or the fundamentals of each of the humanities discipline. Birth of new disciplines I'll discuss. Mass media, for example. Humanities, except for painting and rudimentary for mainly textual. Earlier, most of the knowledge was textual. Now, the digital humanities provide it multimedia. However, at fundamental level, it took thousands of years to make happen. How, before discussing that, first we look at some concepts and definitions. Friends, one of my emphasis in this lecture is on the fundamentals, on the hows also. Sometimes we may go a little bit deeper than required, but still I think we should know how to go deeper also sometimes. Friends, this is a book, Digital Mantras. In this, it is explained that how the humanities have become accessible to computation. And the history goes back at least 2,500 years back. How the digital or computer brings chemical or drastic changes to humanity. Holzman, in the preface of this book, says in very laconic way, Any phenomena is computable. If for a phenomena, whether it is language, music, painting, or art, an appropriate structuralist or formal view can be developed, then digital version is a platform for unlimited creativity because, note these words particularly for computer science people, computers are ultimate manipulators of abstract structures. If we know the data structures and the program structures, there is no better instrument than the computer which can manipulate. And second line seems to be similar, but it is different. Computers are ultimately manipulators of abstract structures. What second line wants to say is that computer can't do anything else. They can only manipulate abstract structures. Now I'll explain this quotation in a little bit detail. What we mean by an abstract structure. An abstract structure is symbolic representation of a structure. For example, I elaborate through an example. A written or symbolic language at the most fundamental or atomic level, first of all, consists of an alphabet, say ABC or KKK, whatever it is. Then from there, we have the rules of forming words from alphabets, sentences from words, and paragraph from sentences. This is what we mean by structuralist approach. That is, we approach the language first by knowing the alphabet and then knowing the rules of making more and more complex structures. Then it is a structuralist approach. And if any phenomena of nature can be considered in this way, to that the computational tools can be applied. Friends, in this respect, the first structuralist and the first computer scientist was Panini. Father of structuralist approach to view a phenomena is Panini, an ancient grammarian who used the approach for formulating the rules of Sanskrit morphology. His ideas have influenced work of each of Ferdinand Saussure, and Chomsky, two well-known modern linguists. Noam Chomsky, most renowned linguist of our time, calls Panini his spiritual father, and Saussure also is indebted to him. Friends, the significance of Panini's work lies in the fact that it is not only the earliest work of linguistics, but incorporates a number of fundamental concepts of modern-day computers. And all these were done by Panini 2,500 years back. Why I have remembered Panini here? Friends, I have told that if a phenomena for a phenomena we can develop structuralist approach, then it can be amenable to computers. And the first person who proposed this approach was Panini. As can be guessed from the previous discussion, propounded and used by Panini for defining, and then was used by this further, this approach. So already the language is already having a structuralist approach, and therefore it is amenable to computational tools. Similarly, in the case of painting, Kandinsky made a structuralist approach for painting, and similarly for the music, I will discuss this one, was done earlier by Greek mathematicians, and in India also. The roots of the classical music of India are found in Vedic literature of Nyaya Shastra, the classic Sanskrit text on performing arts by Bharata Muni, etc. So what I mean to say, whether it is painting, whether it is language or music, at some stage or other, these have been formalized or are given structuralist approach. And once a structuralist approach is available, then the computational tools can be applied to it. That was the purpose. So friends, the tradition of developing musical continues. And even now, for example, Holzman's statement is there that the foundations of the creativity of humanities were laid at least 2,500 years back. It is the statement of Holzman, have been strengthened during the intervening period and fructified in 20th century. This is a highly readable book. Please, you read this book if you want to know more about the humanities. Anyway, friends, with this new humanities, now I'll talk that new type of humanities have come into because of the digital age. In this respect, we use the word genre. Genre is sort of type of literature. A French term for the kind is a distinctive of literary composition, such as poetry is different genre from drama, drama is different genre from prose, fiction, narrative, etc. So new genre has been developed because of the digital technology. Though it is generally used in the context of literature, we may extend it to all humanities. Based on cyber revolution, new genres like electronic literature. Now I am enumerating, please. New genres are, we'll discuss is electronic literature, social media literature. Also some earlier existing genres like utopian and dystopian are now discussed in respect of new technology. So more explicitly, we will be just visiting the concept of what is electronic literature, what is social media literature, etc. Friends, in order to introduce the concept of electronic literature, first of all, we see the earlier type of literature. One of the easiest way of defining electronic literature is the literature which cannot be expressed in conventional text plus image form. Easy, we have got it from the Wikipedia, in which the text and image are only there, nothing else. Now, however, this is very incomplete conception or definition of electronic literature. One of the ways, very light way of defining electronic literature is that which cannot be expressed in only textual and image form. In electronic literature, the concept of hyper as prefix plays significant role in related concepts of hyperlink, hypertext, and hypermedia. We briefly discussed this one. This is very important in order to know the significance of digital resources in humanities. Hyperlink and hypertext. A hyperlink or simply a link is a reference to data that user can follow by clicking or tapping. A hyperlink points to a whole document or etc. I just explain the context by an example. For example, we are given the text, Gandhi went to South Africa, etc., etc. However, while either we are reading or the e-reader is reading it, and somebody becomes interested in where Mahatma Gandhi was born. So in order to answer such question, curiosity, the links are provided. That is, this word Gandhi is given a different structure. That is, just by clicking on Gandhi, you can reach on the previous page of Wikipedia, where you can read about the information of his birth. So this is the very idea of hypertext. I hope you are clear. That is, some of the words are marked in a special way so that if you click on them, then you go to where you want the information to be there. So this is a very important idea of the digital humanities or other. Hypermedia is a little bit different. It is an extension of the concept of hypermedia. Here, if you click a word, it does not take to just take to another text. It takes to much more. Example, here is a two-line poem from Longfellow in the rainy day. My life is cold and dark and dreary. It rains and winds is never weary. And now if this world has hypermedia link, then in that case, it is not spoken. But instead of that, the e-reader will show video and audio simultaneously of the falling rains. That is, hypermedia creates the sound of falling rain and even produces the image of falling rain. So these are, friends, the very important concepts which make electronic literature possible, in which you can go from one point to another of your interests. What is electronic literature? It includes e-books, hypertext, poetry. It includes animated poetry. That is where while reading the poetry, you are seeing the dances and all those chatterbots, interactive in between the book reader. For example, interactivity means that in between it asks questions also. And depending upon the response, it will take a different direction for the story also. So friends, these are some of the new literature, which is called electronic literature, which cannot be represented only with text and image. Now, the second is social media. We have already discussed the Web 2.0 technology in our previous lectures, and it is the Web 2.0 which has enabled the social media and the literature arising out of it. And social media, we have told, are interactive technologies and digital channels that facilitate creation and sharing of information. Some common features of the social media include that they use Web 2.0. They are user generated, and social media helps the development of online social networks. Everybody knows about all these. It includes Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, etc. So we can go. Now, we come to specifically social media literature. The social media has become inextricably embedded on massive scale for communication, for expressing our ideas on various facets of life, in addition to for carrying out our daily tasks. However, this communication of ideas on various facets of life does not fit into the conventional classical model of literature as producer takes audience. The earlier model is whatever one writes, it should be in, and it goes to the audience, and finally it is edited and all that. That sequence is not followed. So there are questions whether it should be treated as a literature or not. But now some scholars, including Stein Lomberg, think that the posting of ideas on the social media represent central resources for organizing daily life and make sense and should be treated as a new genre of literature. Friends, next, I'm discussing digital painting, which is also new type of humanities. Here you see two images which are generated with the help of the computer. Digital painting is a relatively new form. The media used for combines a computer, graphic tablets, and some software. The hardware required is graphic tablets, standalone or connected computers. Software currently available include these Clips, PowerPoint, Adobe, Photoshop, etc. The digital painting is different from the traditional painting in the following respects. Surface in the traditional used to be a canvas or a paper. In digital painting, it is screen. Digital painting also takes up much less space, and the most important, traditional painters have to plan their surfaces and media much in advance, and they generally can't change it later. Where the digital artists have the freedom to alter their painting throughout the entire process. So that is a big advantage of digital painting, and these are some of the examples here. Next, virtual art, which is sort of extension of digital painting. The term virtual in computer tech means realization of a physical phenomena through software means, a hardware activity through software means. Thus, virtual artwork is purely electronic, optical, achieved art. It may combine text, image, audio, video. Cartoon strips like Pogo and Nick are examples of virtual art in which even animals and inanimate things talk and fly and even go on interstellar travels. So friends, in the case of virtual art, only restrictions are: number one, limits of what available tools can do. Number two, limits of human imagination. And last but not the least, acceptability by audience. You may make any experiment with your art, but it should be acceptable. And your available tool should provide it. Digital painting is also a special type of virtual art with that it is in the painting on the screen. So this is about virtual art, which is a new form of art in the humanities, which is digital humanities part. Friends, then digital music. All of you might have seen. Here, the equipment required is a MIDI controller, a headphone, etc. And these are pictorially shown what are the instruments required for digital electronic music. These are some of the earliest music which were produced electronically, in which our Bhangra is also there from the third from the bottom, which became a race during 1970s in India, Pakistan, and United Kingdom. Now, friends, maybe about 7, 8 slides are left. We come to research challenges and potentials in digital age. Friends, I've talked of it. Why the research in humanities is possible in a different and massive scale. So these are some of the tools which are available. Ever increasing high-speed processors, efficient internet working systems, potentially infinite high-speed, efficiently retrieval memory. Memory capacity is almost infinite. High quality audio and video sensors, big data and analytics, conceptual framework consisting of hypertext, which I explained, World Wide Web and disruptive technologies like AI, 3D printing, IoT, blockchain, and nanotech. Friends, 3D technology plays a very important role. I'll explain just now. Now, what are the some major issues in research, particularly about the ancient time? There are many research types. I am discussing here example from research about the ancient history. In the ancient research in the humanities, two issues have been very prominent. Number one, to decipher ancient scripts, like hieroglyphics of Egypt, which has been deciphered, cuneiform of Mesopotamia, which also has been deciphered. However, Indus script has not yet been deciphered. But these have been the challenging problems since the ancient times. The other problem about the humanities or literature have been the hermeneutics, that is interpreting or meaning finding of ancient literary texts. Why we need to interpret the literature? Because the need for hermeneutics arises from the fact that ancient literature had been written in quite different social, cultural, and linguistic environments. The role of the hermeneutics experts is to determine and understand meaning through determining how to bridge the gap between our minds and the minds of the ancient writers. So hermeneutics has a very important role, because the environment at that time when the literature was written was quite different, and the meaning of the same words may be quite different in those contexts. So hermeneutics also have been a very prominent research topic among humanities and deciphering the scripts also. Now, in this respect, I give you an example of the type of writing, Egyptian writing of hieroglyphs, and the cuneiform is given. Cuneiform was on the tablets, clay tablets, because it was easier in Mesopotamia, where in the Egypt, paper, papyrus is a very long leaf of a tree. And people used to write on those ones. And in Egypt, Mesopotamia, they used to write on clay tablets and then they used to bake those. And Indus Valley civilizations and Brahma, and these are some of the edicts and all those which have been topic of research for the humanist scholars. Another of research. In India, in the intervening period, in Vedic period, the major means of storing and disseminating knowledge has been rote learning, where knowledge was expressed in maximum or sukti style, with major concern being to embed maximum in the minimum. That is, the things were written very briefly with minimum number of words, and the explanation was given in the Gurukuls. However, now the Gurukuls are not no there. Therefore, how to find out the meaning of those which are written very briefly? This had also been a concern of research for the linguists or humanists. Now, how the new technology helps, but before that, some more challenges. In the case of clay tablets of Mesopotamia, it was discovered that these were used to write not only on the outside, but material was written on both sides of each of the pair of the tablets. That is, the tablets contain material inside also. And if we break the tablets, then these will be lost. And these materials are very valuable. We cannot break the clay tablets. So this was a problem before the digital revolution. Second challenge, paper was also very short. Egyptian papyrus or later paper, it was very scarce. And what used to happen was that people, after writing something, used to wash the papyrus and then use it for writing again. Now, for the literary scholars, it is interesting what was the earlier writing. So, in these two cases, the challenge was so great before the digital revolution. How the digital revolution has resolved this problem with high quality scanners and digitizers. 3D images of manuscripts and engravings on rocks have made it possible to make exact copies of the research material on almost unlimited scales. So many scanners and all digitizers are available. You can make as many copies as you like and then distribute those copies across the libraries of the world or even research scholars. Also, high-speed computers with machine deep learning algorithms have facilitated to the analysis of the content. So, friends, now the final, with high-quality sensors, 3D images of the clay tablets. Now you need not break tablets. You can create image three-dimensional copy of the clay tablets. With high quality sensors, 3D images of the clay tablets or palimpsests can be taken, which copy even the finest aspects and may read the inside of the clay tablets and the pamphlets on the papyrus. Even the earlier writing which were washed down can now be read with the fine scanners. Also, 3D images may further be sent to 3D printers. These 3D printers can make unlimited number of exact copies of the clay tablets, three-dimensional copies of the clay tablets, in which whatever was written inside also is preserved. So with the new technologies, you can create as many copies of a clay tablet as you like, and then you break and find out the inside also. So these are some of the really revolutionary developments in the research of humanities research. Friends, I think we are summing up some of the research journals. CHM, the journal with the longest history in DH, is Computers and the Humanities, which has been around since 1966 and was renamed Language Resource and Revolution in 2005. Another relevant journal, Literary and Linguistic Computing, from 1986, In 2015, it was renamed as Digital Scholarship in Humanities. The journal is published by Oxford University Press. This is for those who want to publish their digital humanities research work. And there are some associations also with which we can associate. The Association for Literary and Linguistic Computing, which was founded in 1977, and another Association of Computers and Humanities, ACH, was founded in 1978. This is especially for those scholars from the humanities who want to work in digital humanities. In discussion, concluding remarks, it is the final one in this discussion. First of all, it is emphasized that humanities play no less role in the long-term welfare than the sciences and engineering disciplines. These should be given equal weightages in the university education. Number two, digital humanities is a multidisciplinary teamwork intellectual pursuit, where the conventional humanities is generally a solo pursuit. The disruptive technologies involving AI, high quality sensors, and 3D printing have opened new avenues for research in humanities. Friends, these are some of the references. So, friends, with this, I conclude. I think it was a bit heavier, but anyway, this is part of our. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the enlightening deliberation on digital humanities. I am sure it is an insightful session and it would have enlightened the participants about how the
If they are any,
serial and the concept of digital. Now we question. Yes, sir. So I would like to take upon a question which one of our participants have asked. Can I, with your permission, sir?
so, Chopra, uh, on my side, the voice is resounding.
Yes, sir. Connected with device, the voice will not echo.
Okay. Now it is not.
Yes, sir. So I would like to take upon the question.
Yes, please.
What kind of ideological commitments does digital humanity embody?
Uh,
What
Dr. Chopra, I
kind
am
of
not able to listen properly.
ideological commitments
Would you
does
repeat it? Hello. Hello, Dr.
yeah, what comments? Am I audible, sir? You is
You are very much audible, but the only thing is that the voice is resounding and therefore I am not able to listen properly. Your voice is enough.
Ayushi, पढ़िए question. I will repeat for sir.
Can you write in the comment? Could you write in the
sure,
chat
sir.
box?
Yes,
Yes,
I will
forward
write,
that from
sir.
the chat box.
आयुषी वो
Yes, I
chat
will
box में
write it to you.
chat box में everyone के लिए लिखिए मैं देखता हूँ.
Would you
Okay, sir. Okay.
or you speak one word at a time, please.
What kind of ideological commitments does digital humanity embody?
Okay, okay. So, well, question is very good. You mean to say that what is the foundational ideological assumptions of digital humanities? So, Dr. Chopra and the friend who has asked this question, the basic thing is, as some of my friends and I also emphasize the role of humanities in the welfare of humanity, of the human beings. So, what this digital humanities intends to do is to extend the humanities aspect of our lives through the technology, in which earlier only a few people were able to interact and contribute to the social upliftment. That should be possible with the help of technology. That is, technology magnifies humanistic aspects of humanity. So that should be the ideological background of digital humanities. I hope I'm clear.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, you are clear, sir. Justified. Thank you so much, sir. Thank
Thank you.
you for justifying this question. I would now request Professor M.N. Huda, sir, to kindly present a certificate to Professor Manohar Lal, sir, as a token of remembrance. Please, sir.
Sir, thank you so much, Manohar sir, for having explained such an evolving and little complex because of being multidisciplinary subject in such an easy way, and that too giving entire background of the history of digital and the history of humanities and then connecting them together. The beauty that you were giving this session, beauty with that was that you had huge background of the computing as well as the philosophical concept of the literature and the humanities. So you have rightly connected both, and I'm sure the input which you have given is of at least that value, that now the participants who have got interest in digital humanities can understand that how in a systematic manner digital technologies can be used or can be of use for subjects in humanities. And when I'm talking of for subjects on humanities, for all possible purposes means research, teaching, publishing, communication, and related allied areas. So thank you so much for giving this session, and you have always been so nice. Whenever I give you a new topic, you take it up as a challenge and keep on telling me that
Thank
give me a new
you.
topic. This certificate is not for the purpose of
No,
certification or
it is a great
acknowledging
honor.
anything.
It has a
Acknowledging
lot of
anything. It
value
is
for
just for the
it has
remembrance.
value. It has
It is
a lot
just
of
for the
value for
remembrance. Right.
it has
And
a lot
thank
of
you so
value.
much, sir.
Thank you. So kind of you. So
I
I
would
take
like
your leave. I take your leave.
I would now like to I would now like to present a memento to Manohar Lal, sir, as our gratitude from BBI Camp family.
Yeah, we have introduced the concept of e-memento. So the e-memento is available to you just for your remembrance. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
Dear participants, there are many other webinars which have already been notified till 30th of April. If you have not registered so far, do register for those webinars. And this meeting room, which was for knowledge sharing till now, has been converted now to facilitation center. Ayushi, my team members from Bharati Vidyapeeth, Uttam, Manish, and Dr. Ritika, they are working at the back end, few are on the front end, few at the back end, to take care of your requirements of certification. But please understand, my team members cannot give you certificate. You have to fill up the feedback form, which link of which we have already posted in the chat window, and I have again posted it. You have to fill up this feedback form, and then based on the data filled up in the feedback form, the certificate will be generated automatically. Its PDF will be created, and the email ID which you will be writing in the feedback form, on that email ID, this certificate will be emailed to you as an attachment. While checking in your email, do check your spam folder as well, because or junk folder, whichever interface you are using. And if you are not finding it, then in the chat window addressed to all the panelists, you need to write your name as well as your email ID with which you have filled up this feedback form, so that the team members can check that is there any problem in generation, or otherwise if it has been generated, they will send you the link of the Google Drive where from you can download it. So now my team members are there, and this facility is available till 8 p.m. only. So let's hurry up, fill up feedback form, and get certificate with a commitment that next time for next webinar we are meeting again, and next webinar is on 2nd of April. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, all the distinguished panelists and participants who have joined us and been continuously supporting us through all the webinars. A big thank you to all for taking time and joining us on the auspicious days. Thank you.
और भाटिया साहब हमारे हैं, भाटिया साहब सब ठीक है बेंगलोर में? आप म्यूट पे हैं भाटिया साहब, यू आर ऑन म्यूट। अभी भी आप म्यूट पे हैं भाटिया साहब जी। नाउ 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 यू आर ऑडिबल। तो कल के आईटी के प्रोग्राम में कैसे आ रहे हैं आप? ऑनलाइन है क्या है?
कल ऑनलाइन ही आएंगे।
ऑनलाइन आएंगे, चलिए ठीक है, देखते हैं, कल मिलते हैं। ठीक है, ठीक है। थैंक यू सो मच, थैंक यू सो मच।
Very nice, such a good thing he has given right from
And
history.
this topic is very evolving topic,
Very,
and for the people working in humanities area, there is a huge research potential, particularly for all humanities based subject.
Dear participants, please note that at the chat window, you may find the feedback link form. Please find the link for the feedback form, fill in the same and generate your certificate of participation. Once you fill up the feedback form from the link provided in the chat box, the certificate of participation will automatically be generated in PDF. Dear participants, please note that we will not be sharing this link through mail or WhatsApp. You are requested to please find the link of feedback form from this chat window and fill in the same for smooth generation of your certificate. Dear participants, also I would like to bring to your notice that the recorded videos of our activities are being made available at the earliest possible through our BVI Cam YouTube channel. You may find in the details of our YouTube channel also at the chat window shared by Professor M.N. Huda sir and our panelists. You may find all the details of our YouTube channel at the chat window. Subscribe the same for further information. Dear participants, also I would like to request you that please fill the correct data, as the certificate shall be generated based upon the data provided by you in the feedback form. So you are requested to write your name and your organization correctly as you want it in your certificate. Also give any Gmail ID, as the auto system works seamlessly for Gmail. Dear participants, also if you have any queries or you're facing any queries related to the certificate, you can write us on the chat window right now, as no help shall be given either on email or WhatsApp.
Okay, thank you, Aishi. Now I'm logging out. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for giving us time. Thank you.
Yes, yes. How is Ritika ji today? He's in a silent mode.
Yeah, Ritika is working at the background.
Yeah. Her name I could see that she has joined, because I wanted to tell her that she has been already taken.
So the robust system should be developed, and fundamental corrects and the basics of the robust system is you must have many people, right?
Yes.
Right.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Ritika available है ना आपको? देखिए, good evening.
Yes.
बिल्कुल sir.
Right.
वो हम थोड़ी देर
हमारी टीम मेंबर्स के पास काम बहुत होता है, तो वो बैकग्राउंड में कुछ काम भी करते रहते हैं। मल्टीटास्किंग है ना आजकल।
आपने उसको इतना काम दे रखा तो क्या करेगी बेचारी।
ये
And she is enjoying that
मैं दो पंक्तियां कहता हूँ
हाँ।
कि बागे बहिश से हुक्म सफर दिया था क्यों? ऊपर वाले ने, परमात्मा ने हमें दुनिया में भेज दिया, और अब कहते तुम लोग ठीक से काम नहीं कर रहे जी, सिम कर रहे। तो मैंने दो पंक्तियां लिखी थी कि बागे बहिश से, वो तो बहुत अच्छी जगह थी, वहां से दुनिया में भेज दिया। बागे बहिश से हुक्म सफर दिया था क्यों? कारे जहां तराज है, दुनिया का काम बहुत बड़ा है, अब मेरा इंतजार कर। तो हम दुनिया में आए हैं, काम तो हमारे पीछे ही होता है, जब तक आंख खुली है काम होता रहेगा।
ये बात तो सही है, ये बात।
और हम लोग बिना काम के बैठ भी तो नहीं सकते भाटिया साहब।
या वो तो पक्की बात है।
राइट,
बस बढ़िया है,
बहुत बढ़िया। ठीक है, थैंक यू सो मच, विल मीट अगेन सर।
यस।
Dear participants, I would like to inform you that you may find a feedback link form on the chat window. You may find the link of the feedback form on the chat window. It has been shared multiple times. Please find the link of the feedback form from the chat window. Fill in the same for the smooth automated generation of your certificate of participation. Once you fill up the feedback form, submit it to us, your certificate of participation shall automatically be generated in PDF. We will not share this link through email or WhatsApp. You are requested to please fill the feedback form for the certificate. Dear participants, also note that the window will be active only till 8 p.m. So you are requested to hurry up and fill up the feedback form for the smooth generation of your certificate of participation. Also, kindly ensure that you fill in the correct data in the feedback form as you require it in your certificate. As the data provided in the certificate will be based on the data entered by you in the feedback form. Dear participants, I would also like to inform you that the recorded activities of our uh, of our webinars and all the sessions are there on our BVI Camp YouTube channel. You may find the details of our YouTube channel on the chat window. You can subscribe the same. Near about 250 plus certificates have already been generated, dear participants. I would like to request all the remaining participants to please fill up the feedback form and generate your certificate of participation. Dear participants who are facing any issues related to the generation of certificate, you may write us on the chat window. We would be glad to help you, but please ensure that once the window is closed, we will not be able to help you on either Gmail or WhatsApp. Kindly write us on the chat window if there is any issue related to the generation of certificate. Dear participants, at the chat window, you may find a link of the feedback form. Kindly find the link of the feedback form at the chat window. Fill in the same for the smooth automated generation of your certificate of participation for today's webinar. Dear participants, we will not be sharing this link through email or WhatsApp. You are requested to please find and fill the feedback form from the link provided in the chat window. Once you fill up the feedback form from the link provided in the chat window, once you fill up the feedback form, the certificate of participation shall automatically be generated in PDF and emailed to you as an attachment on your mail ID. Dear participants, please note that the certificate shall be generated based upon the data filled in the feedback form. So write your name and organization correctly as you want it in your certificate. Also, you may give any Gmail ID as the auto system works seamlessly for Gmail. The meeting room is open till 8 p.m. So any queries related to the certificate, you may write us on the chat window. We'll be happy to help you, but no help shall be given later on Gmail or WhatsApp. Dear participants, I would like to inform you that the recorded videos of our activities are being made available at the earliest possible on our YouTube channel, BBI Can YouTube channel. You may find the details of our YouTube channel at the chat window. Subscribe the same. Dear participants, please find the link of the feedback form at the chat window. Once you fill up the feedback form from the link provided on the chat window, the certificate of participation shall automatically be generated in PDF. We will not share this link on mail or WhatsApp. You are requested to please fill up the feedback form from the link provided on the chat window. Once you fill up the feedback form, the certificate will automatically be generated to you in PDF. Dear participants, no help shall be given either on email or WhatsApp once the meeting room is closed. Dear participants who are left, I request all those participants to please find the link from the chat window. It has been shared right now. Also, you may find the link from the chat window. 270 plus certificates have already been generated, dear participants. I request all those participants who have not yet filled up the feedback form to please fill up the feedback form and generate your certificate of participation. Dear participants who are still left and have not yet find the link of the feedback form, I request those participants to please find the link from the chat window, fill up the same, and generate your certificate of participation. We will be closing the room around 8 p.m. I request you to please find the link from the chat window and fill the feedback form for the smooth generation of your certificate. All those participants who have smoothly received their certificate, I thank you all for joining. We'll be meeting you on the next Saturday. Till then, have a nice time. I request all those participants who have received their certificate, they may leave the room. And all those participants who are still connected with us and have not yet filled up the feedback form, to please fill up the feedback form for the smooth generation of your certificate. All those participants who are still connected with us and have not yet filled up the feedback form, to please fill up the feedback form soon. Dear participants, I would like to inform you that the link of the feedback form has already been shared on the chat window. Please find the same for the smooth automatic generation of your certificate. Once you fill up the feedback form, the certificate of participation shall automatically be generated in PDF. We will not be sharing this link through mail or WhatsApp. You are requested to please fill the feedback form for the smooth generation of your certificate of participation. Dear participants, I further request you to please ensure that whatever details you are filling in the feedback form, the same would be there on the certificate. So I request you to please correctly enter your data on the feedback form, as the certificate shall be generated based upon the data provided by you. Dear participants, we are open. Our window is open for another 8 minutes. I request you all to please fill up the feedback form for the smooth generation of your certificate. Dear participants, also I would like to bring to your notice that the recorded videos of our activities are being made available at the earliest possible through our BBI CAM YouTube channel. You may find the details of our YouTube channel at the chat window and subscribe the same. Dear participants, please note that the link for submission of feedback form is active only till 8 p.m. When you fill up the feedback form, then your certificate of participation shall automatically be generated in PDF and emailed to you as an attachment on your mail or ID. Please note that the certificate shall be generated based upon the data filled in the feedback form. So write your name and organization correctly as you want it in your certificate. Also, you may give any Gmail ID, as the auto system works seamlessly for Gmail. Dear participants, please ensure that you fill up the feedback form from the link provided in the chat window before closing of the room for the smooth generation of your certificate of participation. Dear participants, no help shall be given either on email or WhatsApp. Once you fill up the feedback form from the link provided in the chat window, you will automatically receive the certificate, dear participants. So for receiving the certificate, please fill up the feedback form. Dear participants, I would like to request all those who have not yet filled up the feedback form, please fill up the feedback form. Find the link of the feedback form from the chat window. Once you fill up the feedback form from the link provided in the chat window, the certificate shall automatically be generated to you. Dear participants, we are open till 8 p.m. The window is open till 8 p.m. Please find the link from the chat window and fill up the feedback form. I request all the remaining participants to please find the link from the chat window and fill in the feedback form and receive your certificate of participation. Dear participants, kindly enter the correct data in the feedback form, as the certificate shall be generated based upon the data filled in the feedback form. So write your name and organization correctly as you want it in your certificate. I'll just help you, Shazia ma'am. Our backend team will help you. Dear participants, last call. I would like to request you, all the participants who are still connected with us and have not filled the feedback form, please find the link of the feedback form from the chat window. Fill in the same for the smooth automatic generation of your certificate. Shazia ma'am, you may find your certificate on the chat window. The same has been shared by our team. This is the last call from our end, dear participants. Those who have not yet filled up the feedback form, kindly find the link from the chat window and fill up the feedback form. Only 5 to 6 participants I would like to name: Miss Jyoti, Sapna, S. Raju, Firdaus Anam, Mamta, Arulmani K. Please, I request all these participants to please fill up the feedback form for the smooth generation of your certificate of participation. I repeat the name of the 6 participants who are left and have not yet filled up the feedback form. I repeat your name: Miss Jyoti, Arul Mani K, Sapna, S. Raju, Firdaus Anam, Mamta. I request all the 6 participants to please fill up the feedback form for the smooth automatic generation of your certificate. We are open till 8 p.m. I would further like to inform you that no help shall be given either on mail or WhatsApp. You may find the link and fill up the feedback form for the smooth generation of your certificate. This is the last call for all the participants who have not yet filled up the feedback form. I request you all to please fill up the feedback form for the smooth automatic generation of your certificate.
Ayushi, just announce names once, and then after I think we can close it. If there is
Okay, the
anyone who is
remaining
writing anything,
participants.
if there is anyone who is
Okay, the
writing
remaining
anything, we can
participants.
extend that. Right. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Dear participants, we are just closing the window. The participants who have not yet filled up the feedback form are Miss Jyoti, Arul Mani K, Sapna, S. Raju, Firdaus Anam, Mamta.
So no one is
We are
responding, no
closing
one
the
is
window.
writing. So this implies they have forgotten to leave the meeting room.
Yes, sir. No reply.
Right. So let's close this room. Thank you.
Okay.
Good
Thank
night
you,
to
sir.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.